Good evening and welcome to Horror. I'm Lee.
I'm Chris.
And I am Adam.
Are you sure?
Don't recognise you without your crazy head attire.
Well, you know, it's. Someone did say that maybe I'd be dressed as a crow person this week, but who knows? It may happen. It may not. Well, I was looking at the pictures again, and it just freaked me the shit out, to be honest. So yeah.
So, do we have a surprise coming?
No. And I assure you that that's not a lie. Or it could be a lie.
Right. So, couple of bits of housekeeping before we get going.
Housekeeping.
I want to say a big thank you to everybody who watched the episode we put up on YouTube for our first video episode.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
It proved the episode that were the film we covered was just as divisive for everybody else as it was for us, because we had two friends of the show give their opinion, and I've written them both down because they were good quotes that I wanted to.
And they agreed with you.
No.
Oh, right. Okay.
One did, one didn't.
Yeah. So Joseph said this film almost made my nose bleed, which I had to share.
Is that good or bad?
No, it was bad. He said it was awful. He was in complete agreement with me. So go, Joseph. He knows the score.
I'm sorry, but he had the best review, which was I started off really caring about the family, and then I was just worried about how long the film was going to be so I could go to bed.
It's true. That's exactly
and that is the best sort of like slating review that I've heard. So well done there.
Yes. And the other one was from our friend Vicky, who said, I really enjoyed this, not meaning the film, meaning the video feed. Although I spent half the time shouting at the screen my disagreement with Lee. Disagree.
Yeah. Well, much as me and Chris did.
Yeah.
Well, was she disagreeing with the negative points or the positive points?
No, the negative points.
Definitely.
She thought it was a fantastic film. So,
well,
yeah.
I'm with you on that, Vicky.
Yeah. She actually put a hashtag Team Chris up before the comment.
Excellent. I'll try to do you proud once again.
Yeah.
I would like, because I had to go back, because I'm following the discussion we had about the part where the dad headbutts the engine.
And to start it, yeah.
You felt the need to double check on that.
Yes. So I went back and rewatched it. And in my defense, I was like, if it's that obvious, like, I remember that engine, the sound in the mix of that engine being really, really loud so that it was really obvious every time it cut out or didn't. And I was like, I can't possibly have missed that. So I went back and rewatched it. And for some reason, so to emphasise the engine running and stopping, they did make it really, really loud in the sound mix, except in that scene where there was no sound of the engine running. So yes, you did see him getting his guts churned up, but they seem to have, I think they went for the sound of him getting chewed up rather than the sound of the engine. Because if you had the sound of the engine, then you couldn't hear the sound of like bits of meat.
Well, I think also there was the punch-up element going on and music, etc. Whereas in the earlier scenes, it's just that's the sort of the setup.
Yeah.
But I mean, in fairness to you, Claire thought exactly the same thing. She thought it was he's headbutted the thing to make him feel pain, and no, it's he's churning his guts up.
It's rubbish.
But I guess we'll have to give you that, Lee.
Yeah.
I'm not giving it to him. I'm just thinking, well, it's just two people were wrong. It happens. So.
Yeah, you two mainly, right? But yes. Also, I'd like to say a big. Don't pull me that face, you turd. I'd like to say a quick thank you as well to Alex Corbin, out there, listener on SoundCloud.
Yeah.
Yes, he's been working his way through the entire back catalogue and liking the episode.
He's doing well.
Oh, bless him.
Yeah, so I really like it because it means
I'm assuming it's a him, but
you could be right. It could be a her. Well done. Yeah, so it was cool seeing how somebody's progressing through our back catalogue. So thank you very much, Alex. Be you a he or a she. Yeah, we really appreciate it. But as you
send
have
us
gone
a comment to let us know.
Well, has he gone back?
Or remain non-specified if you prefer.
But yeah, it's going to take months for them to catch up to episode 60 odd. So they'll hear this in about a year's time, possibly.
Yeah.
But we are very grateful. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. But that's brilliant.
Mm.
And I'm actually pleased because that's what I tend to do if I discover a podcast. Is I'll be like, oh, that's good. Right, so I'll download every single thing. And then I'll just work my way back through it.
Yeah. Yeah, I do the same, actually.
I like to think of it like an investigation. You start where they do.
You look very serious today, Chris. You don't now. Now you're smiling, but until now you've looked slightly pained or confused or.
Have I? Well, that is one of my favourite looks. You know, do what you can do it well.
Right.
I'll have to work on some new ones.
No, don't change on my behalf.
I think it's just the lighting, that's all.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, okay, I'll let you have that.
Don't go changing, baby.
So, with our normal preamble, Chris, have you had an opportunity to watch anything new since we last recorded?
Oh, you'll be very proud.
And
I didn't say that in a way that let you know that you definitely won't be proud. So you definitely won't be proud. I've watched Frozen 2. However, I'm going to try, as I like to do when I watch children's programs, and wedge it right into the horror genre. So it turns out that 2 of the main characters actually die. Now, they do come back to life, which you could argue is even more horror-like. They weren't zombies, but, you know, the children were suitably scared, yeah.
Oh.
So it was quite, quite a moment.
Was it like a death? When you say they died, was it like a proper? Was it like from an adult's perspective, you know they're coming back, or it would be seriously weird if they didn't. From a child's perspective, maybe not. It wasn't clear. They made it very eerie, I suppose.
I mean, feel free to spoil it. Are we talking magical death, or did they fall into a wood chipper?
So I was assuming that nobody watching this will mind if I spoil Frozen 2. But
if anyone does,
yes,
just skip the next couple of brief seconds.
Yeah, well, so I suppose I've already spoiled that in a sense. I mean, there's a lot of other twists that happen in the film, but
that's Tangled.
Well, there's a death that happens naturally, but this is definitely more along the horror aspect. So the snowman called Olaf, if you don't know, Adam, you will probably learn these things in a few years, maybe.
I'm fully aware this is nothing, and that's nothing to do with Ted.
No, fair enough. I'm assuming Lee does know as well, but
I have no idea.
He doesn't, right? Okay, so
Lee would
Olaf,
like to build a snowman.
Yes. So Olaf is the snowman, and he sort of disintegrates on the wind, and he sort of starts to detect it happening, and the realization comes to him as his life is departing, and he's not too upset about it, but he's been having a lot of philosophical thoughts throughout the entire film as well about growing up and how do you deal with the existential angst that life bestows upon you as your brain develops, as kids' films tend to do. So it's quite good that they went for something of that sort of magnitude, I suppose. So yeah, and the main character Elsa, she dies as well. She gets frozen, which she's meant to be the queen of freezing things. So I wouldn't have thought that would be the way she'd die, but
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, but hoist by your own leotard.
Yeah. So it's probably, I was going to say, it's probably worse than Scooby-Doo, which is also coming out because I saw a trailer for it, which actually I thought looked quite good. But Scooby-Doo does have a lot of horror tropes in it.
It does now, apparently.
Yeah.
They've even had Cthulhu stuff and.
Yeah, I've been working my way back through the original series. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? The original ones.
Yeah.
So I watched about 15 episodes of that. but it's never anything supernatural. It's always just somebody on a thief. So,
yeah, back the old version, but now there's, I can't remember what it is. It's called something like Mysteries Incorporated. Is like the new cartoon, and apparently that does have, because they've done bits of like Cthulhu mythos, and I'm sure there's a Hellraiser cube in it at one point. That I'm not quite sure that they've gone that far. I don't think anyone opened it. Jinkies wept as they're peeled raw before Scooby's terrified eyes. And Scrappy tries to fight them, and he gets a fucking chain through his neck like he's fucking needed ever since he was fucking first brought out. Scrappy Doo, you lump of poo. Sorry, yeah.
I agree with that. He did spoil that entire series. So, Adam, what have you been watching? Sorry, these things won't stay in my ears because I've got, I don't know, funny shaped ears apparently. So I will be interfering with them periodically.
Are they weeping?
No, they just keep falling out.
Okay, jets. It seems to be though that we've all somehow managed to end up on kids horror. If you've been watching Scooby Doo and you've been watching, for a start, we've had norovirus, and that's been wonderful horrific. All of its own. Yeah, the sensation of pushing cake mix out of a whoopee cushion every 15 minutes has been just delightful. And I
think we need to make a phrases from Adam book. They are legendary.
People do say I have a good turn of phrase, but it seems to be mainly lavatory related. I first impressed my father-in-law with the use of the term flinty for one of the poos I'd had. So, yeah. Oh, and gritty shaker. Claire likes that one as well, my gritty shaker. But, so Claire and Ted were proper exorcists, biling. I was shitting for England. And, sitting at home ill with an ill toddler. So CBeebies was on constantly. And can I just say, it's a fucking wonder that there aren't more, I don't know, sort of just murders, massacres, and stuff. Because it reminded me of Terminator. It doesn't stop. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't feel remorse or pity. It just keeps digging at you with various bloody cartoons, with various bloody songs. Oh, Christ, it's been depressing, to be honest. And I've watched, Chris, I'm not going to get too started on it, but I've watched a fuck ton of Bing. And frankly, the whole lot of them need put into the flame. But interestingly enough, I have the one thing I have watched sort of proper, horror related, if you like, is Talking Pictures TV have started showing, or have been showing it probably for some time, a children's series called Shadows, which was on ITV back in the sort of late 70s, very early 80s. And it was kind of a precursor to Dramarama, so it's just a kids' anthology show. And I watched a couple of episodes of that, and they're quite good. I mean, one of them ended bizarrely, because obviously it's a kids' show, so you've got things in it like a man who went to find a woman who's cursed a ballet because she lost a leg to illness. But he's got a supercomputer in it that comes in a trunk. And it's like a supercomputer as it would be from like a TV show on ITV in 1974. So it's very sort of like a lot of whirly wires and things and so on and so forth. And it was just bizarre. But the episode I was watching, and this is the real pisser. The episode I was watching, I'm going, I know the guy playing the blacksmith. I really know the guy playing the blacksmith. Yeah, and the reason I know the guy playing the blacksmith is because he's in pissing Quatermass and The Pit. And I've been reading, going, oh yeah, he's in that. Or when he's in that, I know him from Death to the Daleks. And
Didn't realise.
Yeah, and all the way through, I'm going, I definitely know that bloke. And then at the end, it was like, yeah, it's Duncan Lamont, you prat, who you've been sort of reading up on for the past sort of like week or whatever it has been.
So is that actually Quatermass?
Yeah, he's
actually him.
He's in
who's he play?
he was the drill operator, Sladden.
Oh, okay. So you're forgiven a bit then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
No.
It wasn't Andrew Keir. I would have been very pissed off with myself. If it had been like, yeah.
I'm assuming that becomes very obvious. You know.
Yeah.
I guess he's done quite a bit.
Yeah. It's not that. It's because I'm going as I'm watching Quatermass, like when we were watching it back. I'm going. Oh, of course, and he's in this. Oh, and he's brilliant in that. Oh, and he's in Death to the Daleks, and he's and yeah. And then immediately I managed to completely dump all that out of my brain and watch this episode, during which I'm going, oh, it's that actor from this and that actor from that. But I know that bloody blacksmith. I know him from something. It's like, yeah, the sort of someone you've been focusing on for a week. But yeah. Other than that, Vic and Bob's Big Night Out is back. Yep. And I've watched the first 2 episodes of the new Rick and Morty. I was going to...
Rick and Morty?
Yeah, series 4. It's not on, rather stupidly, it's on American Netflix. It's not on English Netflix yet. But E4 have pipped them to the post and are showing it. So Channel 4's beat Netflix to the punch, and you can watch it on there. And at one point, someone is wearing a crown in it that said King of Shit. And frankly, I was going to be wearing that crown this evening because that has pretty much been my title this week. It has been hell in there.
You are the king.
I am the king of shit. But no, so other than that, that's pretty much it. Just destroy my mind with children's television and then watch some old children's television. And which apparently it had destroyed my mind because I didn't recognise someone who's in the film we're talking about this evening. So well done, me.
Right, so I had a conversation with Lady Jennifer last week. We were watching something, and I can't remember what it was, and it had a nice homage to The Thing in it. It had a head with spider legs, and you got to be fucking kidding me line.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to Jennifer immediately, I went, oh, anything with that quote in it is good. And she was like, why, what's it from? And I was like, the head and spider legs. And she went, yeah, no, I don't know. She's got an amazing knowledge of horror, and somehow she has never seen The Thing.
But then, as you said, you hadn't watched it. This like when we watched it together, that was like the 3rd time you'd seen it.
Yeah.
So if you've not been watching it, she probably would have. A lot of her horror knowledge does come from, well, I think they cohabit with you.
Yeah, well,
yeah. It's like Stockholm syndrome. You know, yeah. Claire's suffering much the same problem. It's just like sort of like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So,
yeah.
So right. I would, but thinking about it, so yeah, have you rectified this?
Oh God, yes, yeah. Immediately, the very next day, obviously. Yes.
And what did she think?
Oh yeah, she loved it. Obviously, how can you not? Yeah, and I still can't get over that dog. That dog is one of the best actors I've ever seen in anything.
Oh, he's fantastic, yeah. And he got overlooked for the Oscars, despite the dog from the Burbs being given an Oscar for
what?
Silence of the Lambs.
The other thing I've seen, which isn't horror, but I am going to bring it up because I've railed on this guy for a long time on this show. So I think if I've seen a new one of his films, then I should definitely mention it. Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I've said on this show many times, I'm not a fan of Quentin Tarantino. Mm-hmm. I think he writes like a 12-year-old, like his dialogue. I don't like his musical cues. I'm just not a fan of him in general, really. I watched Once Upon a Time in New York last weekend. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood last weekend. Best film of the year, hands down, without doubt. Absolute work of genius.
I had to put my hand up there just because it does beg the question. You've said on here how much you dislike Quentin Tarantino, which makes you. Well, I did want to ask. So why are you still watching Quentin Tarantino films? But
just in case.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
it's paid off finally.
I'm still watching M. Night films, and that he's not done a good film in forever.
But is it that you don't like them as much as other people seem to like them? Like, as in they are watchable, even if there's sort of element, the style you really hate, but you still kind of get something from it.
I think that's what it is. Like, I hate the dialogue, but generally, like they're passable films. I mean, I watch a lot of really shit movies, and I see them as the same as all that. Like it's entertaining for 2 hours. It's dumb. It makes no sense. It's rubbish, and I can just sit and be entertained by it, and it's fine.
It's like drinking tequila and sticking your dick in an electrical socket.
It's exactly
like that.
Yeah. It's dumb, but it passes a couple of hours,
But so and people just rave about him like he's some kind of movie god, and I don't think he is.
What would have been your other, the next favourite Tarantino?
I've seen Kill Bill 1 and 2 twice.
So I thought you would quite like those.
But they are really good. So.
They are. But
but they're fairly atypical at that point for what he was doing,
And I think the problem is, like I said, his dialogue makes me think. You know the film Paul about the alien?
Yeah.
The religious woman in it who suddenly decides in her 20s, when she discovers that there is no God, that she's just going to start swearing. And she's just like, yeah, you bet your big fucking hairy bald titty arse I'm going to be there. Yeah, that is what Quentin Tarantino's dialogue is like for me. It just sounds like a child whose parents are not around for the first time, and he can do all of the swears and nobody will tell him off. And that is just what he reminds me of.
I think you might be actually more accurate there than you could possibly believe. I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
But he's taken all of that out. Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Do you mean he's grown up?
Well, I think he has. But yeah, those two, I think they're fantastic actors, and I think both of them give the best performance I've ever seen from either of them in this film. There's a couple of things I didn't like about it. They make Bruce Lee out to be a turd for no reason whatsoever. Like, Bruce Lee was a nice guy, I'm sure he was. But they make him out to be a real piece of shit.
Okay. What's that based on?
What's that based on?
Yeah.
Like, so I used to be big into martial arts, so I watched a lot of, videos of him like doing, because he used to do, like lots of, I don't know how to describe it. Like it's like he'd do performances, Yeah, so like a lot of that, and he came across as quite charismatic and quite nice. Whereas in this, he comes across as like an arrogant dickhead. And apparently the family of Bruce Lee were really upset by it as well. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino. It
does seem a bit random. I wonder why he did that.
I don't know, but I won't give anything away about the story. Okay. But what you will see is it includes real people and real events, but they play out totally differently to how they actually played out in reality.
Okay.
Oh, so a bit like Inglourious Basterds, where, spoiler alert, they kill Hitler.
Yes, exactly. It's just like that. He just takes real kind of events and he just makes them all mental. Yeah, I thought and there's so much feet in this. I think now people know he's got this foot thing. Like, it's really, really, really over the top. And I was
the only reference I know is in Pulp Fiction when they talk about massaging feet. I haven't noticed it in any others.
In Kill Bill, there's the whole bit where she's trying to get her feet to move.
Yeah.
In close up. For fucking hours.
The same in this. Margot Robbie has got similar feet to Uma Thurman, like quite big feet. Don't know how else to describe them.
It's got enormous feet like barges.
Got big feet like your Auntie Derek. So he just every opportunity she's got her feet up on the chair, or she, it just focuses.
She's Australian. That might just be the way she sits.
It could be. Yeah, it is true. But yeah, it's still, incredible film. I have never seen an actor quite as good as Leonardo DiCaprio in a specific scene in this film. It genuinely was moving like nothing I've ever watched before. So there you go. If that doesn't tell you on it.
Oh, no, I was going to watch it because I know. Here's our usual say. Go and listen to Not For Everyone podcast because I know Bobby was really taken with it because he messaged me about it and said, you know, if you can get to see it at the cinema, which as it happened didn't pan out. I think that was something to do. I think children. That was it. But yeah, so. But I definitely, I do want to see it. I also listened to a thing with Tarantino talking about the soundtrack to it. What he found is he got bootleg tapes of a guy from someone who basically recorded a local radio station from LA at the time, who was just recording it during the day, just like would run the tapes and he sort of listened to that initially to get inspiration, and then basically that is the soundtrack. It's these guys' bootleg tapes. So everything you hear in there is absolutely authentic. It's adverts from the time. It's like jingles that the radio station made up. There's even, I think there was something on there where he said there's an advert for, I'm sure it's a Hammer film, but there's library music under it. And he said that, like, when he was talking to the guy who was like, he has a researcher now who goes and sources the music and stuff like that. And apparently this advert didn't have any music under it, but that station just didn't think the advert was punchy enough, so they put like a creepy library music track under it. And it's like, so it's all stuff like that. So everything that's on the soundtrack is from are either records that were genuinely played, because he only used records that were on these tapes, or actual excerpts from those tapes themselves of DJs talking, jingles, competitions, adverts for local restaurants and stuff like that. And that I really like that attention to detail.
It's really good. Like, honestly, there's so few things to fault. The thing is, again, fun time. So the other film that I found passable of his was Django. I liked the first hour and a half of Django.
Was that a syndrome? You said it went on a bit long.
And then it should have finished. It felt like there was a definitive end, and then he tacked another 40-odd minutes on it. And I was like,
yeah.
When
it really loses it once Christoph Waltz is gone.
Yeah, exactly. And that felt like a natural end to the film. So when I saw the runtime for this, that was the thing. Like, by that point, I'd bought it, and I was like, well, I've paid for it now. I'm going to watch it. But yeah, when it turned up, and I was like, it's 2 hours and 45 minutes or whatever it is, 245, 250. And I was like, well, I guarantee you can cut 40 minutes out of this without even noticing. You couldn't. There is nothing in this that isn't absolute genius. It's absolute perfection.
Could it have been turned into an episodic?
No, it all runs up to one point. So I don't want to spoil it because I didn't think about it at all. But yeah, Lady Jennifer had read quite a lot up, so she knew a lot of the stuff that was going to happen. But it doesn't happen how you think it's going to happen, and that was one of my biggest loves of the film. Yeah, it was just incredible. I was left absolutely gobsmacked at the end of it. So so I'm very pleased I bought it. Well done, Tarantino.
You look like a new man.
Yeah,
and he'll get one looking like that too.
That's the thing. Like, I just figured enough people love his films. There must be something in there. And that's why I kept giving it a chance and kept trying everything he did.
Yeah.
I was like, eventually, something's got to land. Something's got to work. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I think he's grown up, and I think he's stopped all that, attention-grabbing nonsense he used to do. And he just made a fantastic... Don't get me wrong. It's one of the most brutal films I've ever seen. But I laughed all the way through the brutality. Which I can't normally do, but trust me, when you watch it, you'll understand. It's fantastic.
You have tempted me.
Go Tarantino.
You saying about that with like, oh, it's 2.5 hours, but I paid for it now. I'm a bit like that with crisps. It's like these crisps taste like shit. Well, why are you still eating them? I bought them now.
Jennifer does that with the bath. I can hear her getting ow, put some cold water in. No. I've run it. So I'm sticking to this now.
Yeah, I've committed.
Fantastic. Well, it's always entertaining.
It's all that broken glass you put in there and all that.
Right, so this evening's main feature, having discussed it on every other episode for the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was well built up.
It was.
Sorry.
Is it nearly 3 years? We originally came up with this plan Christmas Day.
Yeah.
And it's Christmas in a couple of weeks, so we're now.
Yeah, we're heading into a third year, definitely.
What we're gonna do? Got to come up with something special.
You're going to watch The Exorcist. You're going to come round here, and we're going to watch The Exorcist. I've already thought about this.
And then after that, we're going to watch The Dirty Exorcist, which is a 3-minute short I'm going to make.
Have you done the?
I don't know anything about it yet. No, I don't know anything about it yet. I've only just come up with a title. But I think I might just do a series of short films that are just films, but with dirty in it. The Dirty Exorcist, the Dirty Omen.
Sorry.
Apart from The Dozen, because that's already got dirty in it. So.
And dancing.
Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, dancing. Dozen. What's happened?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's pausing.
What's he up to?
Nothing. I'll come back to it. I'll do it on the next episode.
What were you going to do?
I went to a preview of a short film, and it was incredible. And it was by Evil Hypnotist Productions.
Yes, yeah.
And it was excellent. And they showed The Third Man on the big screen, and it was fantastic. But I can't find it right now, so I don't want to delay this episode any longer. So we'll talk about it on the next episode. But don't worry, Paul. We will talk about it because it was incredible. So Quatermass and The Pit, finally. Yeah. So Chris, after 2 years of hype, did it live up to the hype?
Whoa.
Ooh, pretty.
You missed that.
Dirty bitch.
That's a nice cover, actually. I like that.
It's great, isn't it? That was what mainly attracted me. Is I just they used to have just the Hammer poster, which is not all that great, but that is just great. That's really sort of body snatchersy.
Yeah. So it's another one that I've now ticked off. My life is that bit more complete.
Yeah.
I know what a Quatermass is, because before that, it was hard not to think of sort of a crater with a lot of mass in, something totally random. It turns out it's a man who's a very entertaining sort of a man.
Yeah,
he's very Scottish looking, but not sounding, which is interesting.
He is Scottish, though.
Oh, is he really?
Andrew Keir is Scottish. Yeah,
he just looks. He's got a very Scottish appearance, and that's not racist.
No, it's not like he's, it's not like he's standing there in a kilt with a tam o' shanter.
So I thought this was a great, the story is fantastic. They think it's a bomb, and then they find out some more, and it turns out it's a spacecraft from Mars, and they have infected the human race. I think I got this right. Yeah, back in time. What is it? 5 million years ago.
Yeah.
Was it? And so we've evolved with Martian DNA, or it had everything that I like in the story. Where I still struggle a little bit is I think it's that era of film that I think if this whole thing was done again, either possibly a bit older or a bit more recently, then it would have sucked me in that bit more. But I love the characters. I really like the the scientist guy and their interactions where they didn't like the military.
Yes.
What do you say to him at first? It's something about like he's never seen any action, and he didn't quite say it like that, but he makes it clear. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not.
Never seen the action, nor's your wife. I'm going to show us up.
Shit. So I really liked all of that. And the way it unfolds. So I definitely would like to watch more Quatermass.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah,
I kind of thought it would appeal to you, and I'm very pleased that it has. Because it's Nigel Neal who also did the Stone Tape.
Oh, okay.
And
That's
I think
interesting. So what came first?
Oh, Quatermass was sort of long before Stone Tape. Yeah.
Okay.
Just like as a potted history, Quatermass started out as a TV series.
Okay.
It's 1953, and actually this is one of the things because I can't remember where it was, but I was looking at something and someone was going, "Oh, the thing is with Quatermass and the Pit is that he jumps to conclusions quite quickly with regard to alien intelligence, etc." But in terms of Quatermass's timeline, this is the third part of the story.
Yeah.
So
he's already
So he's already met aliens. So
probably make it much more likely you'd jump to conclusion then.
So you've got in 1953 they did the Quatermass experiment, which was 6 parts broadcast live on BBC TV.
All right.
And in that he's a rocket that he has sent into space with 3 astronauts on board. Crash lands back on Earth with only 1 astronaut left. And gradually, as it sort of pans out, they slowly discover that there is a substance in the structure of the ship that would account for the missing astronauts. However, the astronaut who's left is a composite of all 3 astronauts, and it's kind of this whatever they've encountered out there has kind of sort of autopsied them, or vivisected them to the point of understanding, and then just stuck them all back together a bit willy-nilly. But also, they are contaminated by an alien creature, and Quatermass has to deal with that.
That was the one I was thinking of. So when we were watching this, and I said to you, part of me, every time you mention it, I'm like, I don't think I'm really a big fan, and that's why it was Quatermass experiment I was remembering.
Because they did
but
it's because what happened is, so you got like 1953, the Beeb do it with a guy called Reginald Tate playing Quatermass. That's quite an important thing, is that basically hundreds of different people have played Quatermass because it just works out that way. That was such a big success that Hammer then bought the script off the Beeb, and in 1955 they released the Quatermass Experiment, which it's spelled, it loses the E, so it emphasizes X as in X-rated, horror, blah blah blah. Because that was the thing, is it was huge. I mean, admittedly, it was the only thing you could watch at the time because there was only the Beeb, really. But it was like a huge phenomenon at the time where people were just like, Quatermass was like this big thing. And then 1955, Hammer released the Quatermass Experiment, which is their adaptation of it. Unfortunately, the guy they've got playing it in that is a guy called Brian Donlevy, who's an American actor who's kind of like a gangster. Like, he played gangsters and stuff like that. So he's not quite Quatermass as sort of Andrew Keir plays him or anything else like that. And so it doesn't work quite as well. And actually Nigel Neal, who created Quatermass, didn't like Brian Donlevy's performance. Indeed, I don't think a lot of people do. Apparently, the one person who really rates him is John Carpenter, but John Carpenter said it was how he first saw Quatermass. He saw those like Quatermass Experiment and the follow-up movie adaptation. So he was like, so he always liked Don Levy. So anyway, so back on the BBC, they commissioned Quatermass 2, which is Roman numerals 2, because it's about Quatermass's next rocket. So it's not Quatermass 2 as in a sequel, it's Quatermass 2 as in that's the name of his rocket. Very helpful that it's the second in series and it's called Quatermass 2.
Yeah.
Quatermass is then played by a guy called John Robinson, because the guy who played him originally died about 3 weeks before they started shooting. So John Robinson's called in very quickly and has to learn the part very quickly. And Quatermass 2, again, really sort of took off with the public, but they've got all of these on. They kept these. They didn't get junked. They weren't going out live or anything else like that. So you can actually see this series. And that is phenomenal, because basically the Quatermass 2 rocket, I mean, Quatermass is a rubbish rocket scientist. That's the one thing you get from this, is because, seriously, his wife was meant to have been blown up by a rocket. The Quatermass, the first rocket he sends 3 people into space and nearly brings about the destruction of the world. The Quatermass 2 rocket gets grounded because it's basically a big fucking bomb, as it turns out, because there's a problem with the nuclear systems on it. But he's also trying to build a moon base. Meanwhile, someone goes out into... he gets involved with this guy who goes out to look at where people are being hit by meteorites and being affected by the meteorites, and people are acting strange. And he goes out to like the middle of the countryside and finds his moon base has been built in the middle of the English countryside. But it's his moon base that the government were funding, but his moon base used to allow someone to live on Earth who can't exist in Earth's atmosphere.
Ooh, interesting.
And then there's a big conspiracy thing, like the government are all involved because they're being infected by the aliens, and it's that one's really, really good. And they did Hammer also made that. They did that in 1957 called Quatermass 2, but with the number 2, so it is just the sequel. They obviously missed the point. Again, unfortunately, it's Brian Donlevy, but still you get the gist from that one. But you can watch the TV one. Then 1958, they make Quatermass and The Pit with a guy called Andre Morel, who apparently was the guy they originally wanted to play Quatermass all the way back in the first series. And he is probably, it's sort of neck and neck, but he is probably my favourite Quatermass, because the TV version of Quatermass and The Pit, that I would say actually, Chris, if you can find that, I think it might be on Amazon, like Amazon Play or whatever like that. The series, it is from 1958, so it's quite slow, but weirdly enough, I think that old quality to it might actually benefit it. Okay. Because it's weirdly sort of more, it makes it weirdly more documentary style. And also you get a much better build of the investigation side of things, where it's like it starts off and it's like, I think the end of episode 1 is where they're like, but that skull was inside the ship, and that's like the first sort of, something's not quite right. And then, so I recommend the shit out of that. Then Hammer made Quatermass and The Pit, the remake, in '67 with Andrew Keir, who is brilliant, and it's great as well. And then in 1979, Nigel Neal had written a 4th Quatermass series, but the BBC didn't want to know, and he had a falling out with them anyway. But Nigel Neal basically fell out with a lot of people, because as far as I can tell, Nigel Neal just didn't like anyone else writing. And if you rewrote him, you were crap. If you copied him, you were crap.
That's pretty much a lose-lose, really.
And if you asked him to rewrite, you were crap. So, he was a bit of a belligerent old bugger. But and then eventually ITV agreed to make this one, and it's just called Quatermass, or it's called the Quatermass Conclusion. And in that, it's actually set a bit in the future, and it's like society's broken down. There's groups of people in it that kind of, because Nigel Neal originally wrote it in the sort of early 60s, are kind of hippies, but now we would think of them more like crusties. it's much more like a punk sort of thing. But there's basically, society's breaking down. There's a sort of generation war, and basically he gets involved with people who are being apparently taken out of stone circles. So like this group of like new age traveller types, sort of crusty punks, whatever, are obsessed with stone circles and things like that, and they're being taken by the aliens to a new utopia, and then basically Quatermass analyzes it and realizes they're just being eaten. And and basically the only way that, I mean, spoiler alert, but it never did me any harm because I knew the spoiler before I saw any Quatermass, is it basically ends with Quatermass having to destroy the world to prevent the world from getting more and more fucked up. And Nigel Neal was quite pleased. It was like, there you go, no more Quatermass. That's it. And John Mills plays him in that version. And that's actually, it's a really good, it is an oddly really good conclusion, but it's the only one that doesn't feel quite so forward thinking. But then I think it was just because it was written about 10 years before it was actually made. And again, I don't think he bothered rewriting much stuff. But yeah, so you can get the TV ones, but you can only get 2 episodes of the Quatermass experiment because they were live, so they recorded 2, but the rest of them disappeared into the ether. You can get Quatermass and The Pit, the BBC one, on Blu-ray now, apparently, as well. But apparently it's not that much of an upscale, so I haven't bothered. But you can get a really nice Quatermass conclusion. That's really good. And then in 1996, Andrew Keir came back and did a radio series called The Quatermass Memoirs, which is set after The Pit, but before Quatermass conclusion. And it's him like telling the story of the first 3 Quatermass stories, but with Nigel Neal also in there, saying about how it was related to stuff that was going on at the time and government things and sort of, the world as it was going. And it actually ends with Quatermass saying that he's receiving news that his granddaughter's gone missing, which is kind of leading into the last episode where he goes looking for her and finds the world's gone to shit in a handcart, and the best thing is to send a nuclear pulse up a stone circle to a devouring alien presence. That's what you do.
That might actually be what we need.
Yes. And then in 2005, they remade the Quatermass experiment as a live TV one-off broadcast. Mark Gatiss is in it, David Tennant. Jason Fleming plays Quatermass. And that's a really good, just adaptation of the original Quatermass because, like I say, you can't really see it. And it's better than watching the Brian Donlevy one. And that was broadcast the same night that the Pope died, and you and me, Lee, were watching Noel Fielding doing stand-up.
We were in the Abused Moose, which is a secret club in central London.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically the Quatermass story. So in terms of The Pit, this is
it's had quite a good run.
Oh yeah, and the weird thing is that no one, like I say, Brian Donlevy and Andrew Keir are the only people who have played him twice, and I do think it's something that's quite ripe for a consistently done version where you can sort of seed it through because like characters reoccur across the first 3 sort of series, and you get like a reporter who comes back in on this, who's in The Pit, who's in another one, and stuff like that, and yeah. But yeah, like I say, the BBC Quatermass and The Pit is well worth checking out if you do love, if you really like Quatermass and The Pit. It is, it's telly from 1958, but it's actually still pretty fresh feeling, and actually, like I say, I think it probably has a better build than the Hammer version, just because it's not condensed, so you get much more like the stuff where they're going through about like. Because, I mean, I love that, because, again, that is kind of like the Stone tape, where they have all the, like, they're going through the parish records, and it's like, people, it's like, what is it, charcoal burners from, like, the 1300s, and even then it's like, This has long been a known place for strange and mysterious sounds and sort of all stuff like that.
See, now I made a note of that. This is one of the first things that I remember seeing where it actually took ghosts and aliens and put them both, like one is the cause and effect of the other. Yeah, and I really like that. Like that kind of, what is it they call it? A unified theory.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really, again, like I say, for 1967, like that's really forward thinking to say, do you know what? Maybe ghosts are aliens, mental projections, and stuff. Like, yeah, like that's really thinking outside the box for the time. I thought it was excellent.
Well, not only that, I mean, the script really doesn't change much from 58, so it's, you know, it's even kind of earlier. Again, going back to, so it's, yeah, I mean, Nigel Kneale really just, I mean, when he was on fire, he was a fucking dynamo. He really was. And he did another thing called the Year of the Sex Olympics, which predicts...
Did you say the Year of the Sex Olympics?
Yeah. And what it is, it's a dystopian future, as they all are. It's a dystopian future where basically the population's got out of hand. So to stop people procreating, they just give people, like, nonsense telly and pornography.
Well, then we are living that dystopian future.
It gets better. It gets even better than that. It's basically the ratings start going down because people are bored of watching sex and stupid game shows and things like that. And then during a show, someone, like a technician, falls off a ladder and dies, and the ratings go through the roof.
Right up, yeah.
And then they're like, oh, so people like real things. So one of the executives...
And people dying.
Yeah, well, one of the executives comes up with the concept of, well, why don't we put a house on an island and put cameras all around it and just film people living life like olden days, as he puts it, and it's just like having to subsist like on a farm sort of thing, and it's basically Big Brother or any other, or Survivor or any number of those sort of reality shows. And again, this is like I think that's before the Quatermass and The Pit. So it's about like 58 or something like that, or 56. And then again, it's the usual thing. The ratings start falling. So what do they think? We'll send a convicted murderer in. And yeah, it's just, and it ends as grimly as you can imagine with that. But at the end of it, it's the audience, the ratings are through the roof. Everyone's really, really happy with it and everything. And it's like the one executive left in the sort of boardroom is going, that man is dead. That has happened. And they're like, yeah, but it's like, you know, but it's the ratings. And it's sort of, again, just worryingly sort of, he's just a very, very, I would say elements of it, he would probably, I mean, he would despise it because I think he despised, like I said, I think he despised pretty much anyone else's writing. But something like Black Mirror it's in that, I think that's definitely where Charlie Brooker would aim for, where it's like you watch things like 50,000.
Well, there's technology manipulating us without, you know.
But when you watch stuff like 50,000 credits and it's things like, oh yeah, no, that's how it's going to be. Like when you end up in a box of screens and you have to pay to stop adverts. And so, do you know what I mean? And it's sort of, it is like, again, that sort of thing of natural conclusion. But Nigel Kneale was just like formidably good at it. He really was.
Maybe he was infected by aliens.
I think he was. Well, the end of the, because the end of the, for some reason, at the end of every Quatermass, he kind of does a broadcast to the nation. So he would be quite famous, where it's like, because one of them, it's just because he basically broadcasts the nation to apologise. He hijacks like a OB camera, like outside broadcast camera, because the alien naturally holes up at Westminster Abbey, but it's the week after the Queen's coronation, so the cameras are still there. And he hijacks one of the OB cameras and basically says to the world, look, I'm going to go and try and stop this, but I want to accept responsibility for I've probably fucked this planet. And all the way through it, you do get that kind of thing of Quatermass is just terribly responsible and sort of really guilt-ridden by all the things that he does. I mean, he keeps fucking doing it. I mean, it's like, you keep doing rockets and they keep blowing up and killing people. And
yeah, but like I said, do what you're good at. Although,
yeah,
as
exactly.
you say, he's not necessarily good at it, but that's what he's best at out of everything.
Yeah,
I mean, it's probably quite difficult to do rockets.
He's found his niche.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, he's found his niche. Bless him.
Rocket science might be a difficult thing.
Probably. It's just, I don't know if it's as hard as brain surgery, but it's right up there.
It's definitely in the classics list. I remember I read a comic called Orbiter by Warren Ellis, who did Castlevania, one of the comics he wrote, and I remember saying to Dean about that. I was like, it's really good, but there's bits of it where I'm just like, what? What the hell's that's like all stuff about like propulsion and trajectory. And he went, yeah, it's rocket science. That is kind of hard to understand. I was like, oh yeah, it is one of the go-to examples of hard to understand. Isn't it? So maybe I'm not letting the side down so much, but you know,
we'll give you that one.
Yeah, I thought so.
I've got to say, I made a couple of notes watching this. At the opening credits, although the film itself isn't particularly horror, like it's way more sci-fi, opening credits were horror just through and through. Stuff.
Yeah, you've got
really
big skulls and stuff, isn't it? It's like, yeah.
And also the connection back to, I didn't write the episode number down. I was going to Hobbs End, who in the Mouth of Madness.
Yes.
So I hadn't noticed that previously, but yeah, I remember just discussing it in the Mouth of Madness episode, and you saying it was one of the episodes, where it kept calling back to this. Every 10 minutes we kept coming back to Quatermass.
So what's Hobbs End?
So Hobbs End in the Mouth of Madness, it's the place where it's the fictional place where all of his books take place. So like Stephen King's got Castle Rock.
Oh, so that's where they went to.
Yes. Sutter Kane has Hobbs End, and then it turns out it's potentially a real place. And then they go
where they find him ultimately is in Hobbs End. Which comes from this. It's interesting. Go on, sorry.
No, I was going to say, I mean, we've said it before, like on the again, can't remember which episode, but the Halloween 3. John Carpenter's a big like Quatermass fan, Nigel Neal fan, and again, like Halloween 3 is kind of based on a script that Nigel Neal wrote. Although Nigel Neal claims that his didn't involve stone circles or anything and projection through the TV, and it's like, get the fuck, mate, come on, you know, that's not.
It included that.
Yeah, it's. And maybe that's the reason he took his name off it, though. It's like, I don't do stone circles anymore. And John Carpenter's like, that is specifically why I've hired you. Nigel. Nigel! What are you doing, Nigel? But yeah, you've but well spotted on Andrew Keir's Scottish appearance, Lee, because I'm impressed because he is Scottish. But this is
something about him. He just looked really Scottish.
Yeah.
So he's got a little bit of a, you've got a bit of a similarity to him, Lee.
It's the beard.
Yeah.
And very similar hair.
We'll get you a little tweed hat, and then you can.
And I did make a note of it. I do also have the same rule, which is I don't drink hard liquor before midday.
Yes.
I love that line. Please excuse me, I don't normally drink before midday. Not like normal people who have even at the weekend, 6 o'clock is probably early enough. Yeah, please excuse me drinking this flask of brandy. I don't normally drink before midday, but some bloke just had a bit of a shout in a box.
Oh, yeah. That, I mean, the thing is that, like I say, when you watch the Beeb one, the stuff sort of tends to be pretty much, it's hit for hit. It's just very condensed.
Yeah.
But again, and actually, the one thing I do love about it is I do love I do love his relationship with Colonel Breen, because that's not it. And actually, weirdly, I think the Hammer Colonel Breen is slightly more avuncular, because the one on the BBC, he starts out full dick. He's just a knob from the start, because the whole thing is right at the start of it is where they're sort of going on about they're taking over, because that's the thing is that he runs the British rocket group, and they're basically the military get involved, because they're like, well, if we're going to send stuff into space, we're going to make sure that it's going to be military. With a military, what's the word? Like from a military angle or whatever like that. But yeah, Breen is like a real sort of just proper stuffed shirt arse in the BBC one. But Colonel Breen in this, Julian Glover, who I had to look it up, is 84 and still fucking rocking. Because right. I'll give you a few sort of credits for you. This one is just purely for me, so I apologise already. That he was Count Scarleone, aka Scaroth, last of the Jaggeroth in City of Death on Doctor Who. But that's his maybe. But he's General Veers in Empire Strikes Back, the Attack Commander.
Yeah, that's where I knew him from.
Yeah. He's Walter Donovan in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Christatos in For Your Eyes Only. He's in, but he's still making stuff now. He was in Black Earth Rising quite recently, but you'll probably know him best as Grandmaster Pycelle in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Grand Maester, sorry. He's jazz hand.
Yes.
As I always think of him because of bad lip reading.
And he also looks exactly like my friend Simon Jones. Which,
he does actually, yes.
Clearly knows.
Yes, he does. But do you know who we mean, Chris?
I think so. I know him from Indiana Jones and Star Wars. So Pycelle, I kind of think you mentioned someone that was related. That Pycelle was he the blind?
No, he's the very old Maester at King's Landing at the start of Game of Thrones. When they first go to King's Landing, he's like the old boy who is their Maester.
Yes, the sort of kind of dodge. He's got a beard,
white beard, monk look.
Totally did not.
Yeah,
realise.
That's Colonel Breen.
Yeah, and that's funny. I definitely had a sort of sense of him being someone I knew, and I never realised. Okay,
and
the thinking of Chris.
The one he was someone else though, wasn't he?
Like, well, that's your dad.
Yes, from
from
M.R. James.
Yeah,
from not Whistle and I Come. No, it is Whistle and I Come to. No, it's not Whistle and I Come to You. It's
A Warning to the Curious.
That's him. Yep.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just again, like I say, just what is your secret, Julian? Because
it looks so good.
You know, and I mean, well, he's still acting in stuff and things like that, and he's I'm just, and also, how fucking badly does Mark Gatiss want to be in?
Yeah, totally.
You know that at the couple of Christmas episodes back, he was in the Doctor Who Christmas special, playing a man in a World War I uniform, and it was like, can you make me look a bit like Julian Glover in Quatermass and The Pit? Could you? Yes, lovely, thank you.
This Christmas, Ghost Stories for Christmas, there is another one. It is being done again as an M.R. James story. So
I'm very pleased to hear.
Yeah,
because I like his M.R. James adaptations. I just didn't think much of the one last year. It was okay. It passed half an hour, but then so did Breaking Wind.
I think the problem is because it's such an old tradition. In my mind, it should still be an old story, so they should still be old Victorian stories. So doing a new turn, like it's worth a punt. Like give it a go. But yeah, it certainly didn't work for me the same way that the M.R. James adaptations do. So I'm glad they've gone back to those.
Yeah.
Okay.
The guy I was talking about earlier, Duncan Lamont, who played Sladen, the drilling engineer, and again, that's just like that is one of the weirder moments that, like Claire said, it was like that effect where the gravel's moving. That's still shit up. That is. There's sort of like there's a couple of dodgy wires here and there, but basically effects wise, I think this holds up.
People who are brought in by the government to do very specific jobs still have to hold their trousers up with a piece of rope.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I just love how he basically now. Do you know what he'd be doing? He'd be driving for parcel false. It's that same thing. It's that same thing of I'm a moaning English workman, and
council.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. But just the sort of thing where it's like, what, mate? Yeah. And just lightly, and just the sort of disdain coming from the army as well, which was just.
When they tried to nick his tools.
Yeah. Hang on.
Cheeky bastards.
But yeah, I mean, sort of. I think there's. Oh, and did you spot the vicar in it? Who was the headmaster from Please Sir? Was when I was out to take when I was out doing choir practice. Yes, the old headmaster from.
I didn't pick up on that.
Sir, yeah.
Myself for that.
And obviously, you've got Andrew Keir playing Quatermass and Barbara Shelley playing Barbara Judd. And
I recognise her as a vampire in something. Is that right?
Yeah, she's in Dracula, Prince of Darkness, as indeed is Andrew Keir. Actually, he plays Father Sandor, the main sort of.
Yeah. I have written Quatermass is vampire movie priest kick-ass.
Yes.
Just remember him being very. Stop being so foolish. Get up there. Get it sorted. Come on.
He's wonderfully no nonsense in it. It's like when he comes in and the first thing he does is warm his arse on the fire. And it's like, I'm a man of the cloth, but I do like a warm behind and stuff like that. But I think that
demands when you want, which
yes. But I think that he's in Dracula, Prince of Darkness. So's Barbara Shelley. She's Helen, who gets dracked. Dracula, right. Prince of Darkness is one of the Hammer Christopher Lee films, Chris. But unfortunately, it was by this point that Christopher Lee said the dialogue had got shit, and it was like, well, if the dialogue was not from Stoker, I won't say it. So Dracula doesn't actually talk during that film.
So wait, he was still happy to act in it, but just not talk.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stroppy pricks involved. You know, I'm willing to take the shilling, but I'm going to be a bit of a dick. I'm just going to. If it's not, I said to them with the dialogue. Well, if the dialogue's going to be like that, I'm just going to not talk. I mean, why they can't go back to the source to start? It's like because you're three films deep, mate. They've mined it. They've done everything.
Was he starting to get other films?
I think so.
At that point,
Christopher Lee had that sort of weird, which Pete Cushing never suffered from, but Christopher Lee did have that weird thing where every so often he would kind of deny that he was a horror actor. And I was like, I have done over 900 other films, you know. It's a very small portion of what I do, and it's like, yeah, but it's what you're known for, mate. Come on. It's like Alec Guinness moaning when kids recognised him as Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's like, yeah, because they've seen Bridge Over the River, quite silly old prat. But Barbara Shelley's in The Gorgon as well. Blood of the Vampire, Rasputin, Shadow of the Cat, Camp on Blood Island. She's in loads of Hammer films.
I need to rewatch Rasputin actually as well.
Yeah, she's. I believe Barbara Shelley's actually still with us. but she did have rather a
She?
debilitating.
Where is she?
We've got her in a bag.
She was in again, back to Mark Gatiss, she was in the History of Horror.
Yes, she was, yeah.
Yeah, I do remember her being interviewed by
him.
Which was
but
good.
she's had quite a debilitating stroke, so I think that sort of curtailed her acting, unfortunately. But yeah, no, I believe she's still with us. As is Julian Glover. It's one of the few films we've covered from 80s back that actually features living members of the cast who aren't, children in the film. So yeah, it's quite remarkable for us. It's almost a happy story. Oh, is this your bid for? Was that your bid for sponsorship?
Oh, what was it?
Maker's Mark, please sponsor us.
Oh,
okay.
I thought to find this stuff.
You've got to do it properly, though. You've got to put your hand behind it like a proper. Honestly, don't you know anything about YouTube, Lee? Come on. But you don't even.
I'll tell you what I do know about YouTube.
Yeah.
Is when you first sign up, it takes you 12 hours to load a video because it keeps knocking it back. Because if it's longer than an hour and a half in length, you need to authenticate your account, apparently. And if it says you can authenticate your account, don't worry. You don't need to re-upload your video. You don't need to re-upload it, but it won't publish it. So you basically have to delete it and then re-upload it.
you're just pointing out to everyone that you're an unauthenticated loser at the moment.
You got to remember, people.
YouTube sucks dick.
But we're now fully established.
Yeah.
Now we have control.
We're not getting monetized now, are we? You fool. We could have been YouTube darlings. We could have been. I don't know. We could be the new Team 10. We could have been the new Smosh. I don't know. Other names that I've heard of. Yeah, of course we don't. We're in our 40s, you fool. That's why we don't know who these people are.
Early 40s. Only 41.
Early 40s. How dare you? I'm 48.
Nearly 50, you cheeky fucker.
Sorry. Us in our late teens, as we are, because that's what all the YouTube people want. Quick, Chris.
I'm start alternative to YouTube, and it's going to be easier to upload to.
Chris, do some flossing or something. Get the kids involved. Get the kids watching. I don't understand how these things work.
What you mean? Go and clean my teeth?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just getting worse.
Yeah. Oh no. I know. But
just look.
You got to remember.
Press the filter button. It'll all be fine.
There's people lighting their farts who manage to upload videos to this. So
for an hour and a half, apparently.
I would watch that. Hour and a half long.
That is what we're missing from the world.
Yeah, just someone who
the pain, the call in the ambulance, waiting for it to come, picking you up, taking you to the emergency, going through 3 hours.
Yeah, Burnt Bum Channel. Let's forget the podcast.
Talking earlier on of stuff set further back, which has been covered multiple times. I've also been watching the War of the Worlds TV show on the BBC.
Oh, Any Cop?
Yeah. I'm 2 episodes in. The last one is this Sunday, and I'm really enjoying it. Chris Jones, previous guest on the show, said it was garbage. But I've really enjoyed it.
So that meant that you're probably going to love it.
So, well, I don't know. He liked Threads, so
yeah.
Yeah, but you might like Threads.
I'll never find out because I'm not going to fucking watch it. But War of the Worlds, really good. It takes the story in a slightly different, more. So it's more about the family who are experiencing it than purely the experience itself of the aliens coming down. But yeah, it's very good. They've kept it period, but they've modernised it slightly, which I quite like. What's that big grin about?
You said period. Oh dear.
What a bloody mess.
So they've set it still in the Victorian era, but they've kind of updated the technology of it slightly, which I quite liked. Yeah, I just thought it was very good.
Yeah, I'm going to wait until it's all up, like all 3 parts, and then I'll probably binge it.
That's the plan with Lady Jennifer. So I've watched the last 2, but on Sunday we're going to watch the first 2 in the afternoon, and then watch the 3rd one as it airs. So
Nice.
Good job, BBC. Very much liking it.
Yes.
And getting Rafe back on TV, because can't get enough Rafe Spall. He's amazing.
No. He's great. An acting dynasty.
Indeed. Right. Shall we wrap this up then?
Yeah.
And tell people what they can look forward to next time.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
A not horror film, according to Lee.
Oh, it is a horror film.
Yeah.
It
Just not a scary, a fun.
No.
Sorry?
What are you
He's
doing with
thinking
your
about
hand?
what we're
I
going
was
to be
going to try
watching.
and do the thumb thing, but I just realised I'm not very good at it, so I'll practice that before I do it.
Yes, so
What about the other one? Did I not look?
He's good. That was good, man. Yeah.
This is why you should be watching the YouTube video and not just listening. You just missed pure gold there from Chris.
I think, yeah.
For the benefits of the tape, pure gold.
Yeah, so for the next episode, as it's going to be almost Christmas, we are going to cover Gremlins.
Yeah.
I reckon that's one of the best theme tunes.
It is.
You have seen Gremlins, I'm assuming.
I have, yeah.
So yeah, so you're going to now re-watch it with a horror background and see.
Yes, it has been a long time.
Yeah, fingers crossed we can get Lady Jennifer on as well. So we'll see.
Cool.
Because she loves Gremlins, obviously.
Yes.
It was probably her that gave it to me to watch.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I'm looking forward to showing it to Claire as well. And Gremlins.
She never seen it.
She's not seen it now.
Or Gremlins.
Yeah.
See, this is what I thought Gremlins would be perfect, because I know that your respective halves don't like horror particularly.
Oh no, Claire was Quatermass and The Pit with me. She just enjoyed that. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So that's what I mean. This is a good film that you can show with your other halves, and they will enjoy just as much as you. I'm absolutely certain.
I think Shelley might have seen this one of her rare scary-ish films. I think she might have seen it.
I think, weirdly enough, the best way I can describe it is it feels like it's a kid's film that's just a wee bit too scary for kids.
Yeah.
That's how I viewed it when I was a kid, and that's how I will always view it. It's like, oh, it's a kid's film. Wouldn't show it to a kid, but
and it's got Phoebe Cates in it.
Yes.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Go on.
And I was thinking, so I can't think of her in anything else.
Drop Dead Fred.
And Gremlins 2, the new batch.
All right, yeah, and Gremlins 2.
There you go. Blew that one out of the water. Right. So we shall reconvene in a fortnight, and we shall cover Gremlins. I hope this sounds all right. I don't quite know. I've got
sound lovely.
Wedged into my ears.
You need to get yourself like a sweatband.
Oh yeah.
Like, hold them in.
Yeah.
Like in the 80s.
And you could do some moves, yeah.
Yeah.
I flashed Adam my boobs earlier before I started recording.
Lovely.
Adam's looking forward to it.
I'm getting it. Christmas present this year. Right. Have fun. Thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen.
On that tongue action.
Filth, isn't it? Right. Have a fantastic evening. Thanks ever so much. Don't forget to send us your hashtag Ask Welcome to Horror questions.
Email us.
Email us at info@welcometohorror.com or message below on SoundCloud or YouTube, and we will definitely like and mention your comments possibly on the next episode. Don't mug us off though, because I know you're all trolls. Yeah, and we'll see you again in a fortnight. Bye.
Bye.
Drink Maker's Mark.